Hey everybody, it's Andy aka Max Ryder. We are back with another author showcase video. This time we're going to be looking at The Curse of Dudleytown. So this is my longest Miskatonic Repository submission to date. It takes place in 1811 in Dudleytown, Vermont. And as you can see, we have the cover. There's the interior cover. Cover page, we have some quotes. Here's my play testers, and as you can see, the table of contents on this is pretty extensive. This is a 70-page scenario. Well, the scenario is not 70 pages, but the actual PDF is 70 pages. A short forward here, we get talking about not Vermont, Connecticut. Sorry, I should probably start over. This talks about the actual Dudleytown, Connecticut, and just kind of what was there and what really happened. And then we get into the meat of it with the Curse of Dudleytown, or to do a great right, do a little wrong. I started adding little extra titles to all of mine after watching a lot of Bullwinkle and Rocky. So it starts with an introduction, very short introduction. You can use this actually as like a teaser for your players. Keeper and players information on what's going on in Dudleytown. Then we get to we've got adapting the scenario, which gives some ideas for putting it in different times or places. And then background. The locale in this case is called The New Nation. We've got a capsule summary of Europe in 1811, the United States in 1811. Here's a little short list of kings and leaders in 1811. American flag. And of course, President James Madison is right there. I went into some detail here about Americans of the time, some of the things that they do, some of the things that they believe, the political parties at the time. The Democratic Republican Party is around, and the Federalist Party is kind of in the kind of throes of its death. Money's talked about, wages, transportation, turnpikes. Turnpikes were very common. And actually, so I guess that isn't the locale. Locale is next talked about. Here's Connecticut. And more specifically Litchfield County and Cornwall Township and Cornwall Village. I go into great detail about this. Also in the county, in Cornwall Village are Cornwall Center, Cornwall Hollow, East Cornwall, Hartsbridge, Lewisbridge, North Cornwall, and of course Dudleytown. Now these others in Connecticut, towns are entire large areas. So these are all sections of the town, but the towns themselves are very small. So it's more like a county and townships, if you know what I'm talking about, from different states. We talk about the Dudley family and the history of Dudleytown, and then what's going on in Dudleytown. Next, I went into every single building in Dudleytown. First, there's just kind of what Dudleytown is like, how it is. This is a real place, and it was up in between several mountains, so there's very little sunlight that gets through, except towards noon. The rest of the day, it's thrown into the shadow of one mountain or another. It's also at a higher altitude than the surrounding township, so it's totally different from everything else in that township. Then I went into locations in Dudleytown, and we start to look at every single home that was there at the time. Now, most of these I had to make up, or I just had a name. A few of them I didn't. Wilfred and Seeley are on the edge, as is best. These are made up. The charcoal burners were actually there, as were the mills. Captain Andrew Andrews was a real person. He actually did live in Dudleytown. Then we've got Patterson, Miller, Carter, and most of these were the names of the people who lived there at one point or another. The old school, which is important for the scenario. Rogers. Whoa, what the heck happened here? Looks like it skipped a page. All right, we're gonna have to redo that. Did not realize. Yeah, it pulled a page out. That's okay. We will fix that in post. We'll get that fixed. That would normally not happen. There's not blank pages in the middle of the scenario. Widow Hoadley was a real person. So was William Tanner. Calvin Brophy, I made up. The Stove House is also made up. Caleb Jones, Dick Brophy, one of the main characters you're going to deal with. There are pictures for all of the people from the village. Just to give your players kind of an impression. They might not exactly be wearing these types of clothing, but this kind of gives a good idea of, it gives the characters a good idea who they are. The Cookhouse, Hunter, the Red Cabin, and Patterson. So there are 22 locations in Dudleytown. I also went into some flora and fauna of the area and talked about the Congregational Church, because it's a little different. Congregational Church was the state religion for Connecticut at the time. Then we actually get into the scenario itself. So all of this, first 22 pages, that's all background material and stuff for the the keeper, for his use in the game. And then we get into the actual story. We introduce the pre-gens are all introduced. I included 6 pre-gens. And then the story itself begins with an encounter in the dark entry wood, and bad things start happening to our heroes. Going into Dudleytown for their various different reasons. Each one of them has a reason for going there. Very briefly, Thomas Simmons and Henry Murphy are going to go get some logs for business in Cornwall. Father Benjamin Moore is replying to a letter from a former member of the congregation who is in trouble. Alistair McGillicuddy is a con man who's going there to sell some snake oil. And Mary Wright is going to visit her cousin, who is also having some issues right now. So everybody has their own reasons for going there, and they can get to know each other as much as they want along the way. Basically, okay, now I've lost my train of thought. So heading into Dudleytown from this first encounter in the woods, and then once you get into Dudleytown, people start to act a little strange toward them. Certain people do. At which point, as the keeper can allow the players to split up. They all have their own things to do, which means that the party should split up at this point. And they don't have to, but naturally they would. These are just people traveling together for safety. And so we give a little synopsis of what each one of them is going to learn, or what could potentially happen to each one of them, and what might happen the rest of the day. Now, the first night is when things start to really get weird. And there's a list here of all the potential oddities that could happen. It's quite extensive because I had a lot of ideas I felt were nice. Extra occurrences will be things that don't necessarily happen that night, but the next day. And then again, basically this is escalating. Each one is a little worse than the one before. Now at some point, another thing happens in the story, which is the fall of William Smith. We've got a rough timeline of events that I was able to fit right here. The players can investigate, try to figure out what's going on so they can help the people of Dudleytown, or help their people that they are there for. Or like some of my players did, they can do nothing. Well, one of my players just kind of was like, this ain't our business. You can talk to the locals. There's some rumors that the players might be able to learn. They can go to various locations, and a couple locations are a little bit greater detail is given for what they might be able to learn if they go to certain houses and certain places. There is, of course, an abandoned house in town that's got some information in it. There is the Man in the Stone House. There's William Tanner and his story. Most people have a story. And, well, not most people. Several people have a story in the game. And that story can lead you to figure out what to do, what is going on, and what can be done about it. One thing that the players have the option of doing is once they learn about the little people, or that there's a curse on the town, there are little people, then they can try to talk to them by basically speaking into the room at night before they go to bed. And the little people might reply. Another thing I added just for this that it wasn't in the initial scenario was the cat came back. And in this case, there's essentially the ghost of a cat who can help the players in their dreams. Finally resolving the dilemma, what to do, tracking down the little people, leaving the area, the curse follows. So it's not going to be easy to get away from Dudleytown once you're there. We've got some sanity rewards here. The future of Dudleytown actually describes what happens to Dudleytown during the Civil War and up to present day. And this is all accurate, exactly what happened. I'm not sure if this is exactly accurate, but it is for the most part drawn from true history. Some of it is some of the stories about Dudleytown that I've incorporated because in Call of Cthulhu they really happened. We have some playtest notes which I talk about the convention in which I ran this. There's a bibliography, it's quite extensive. I did a lot of historical research for this one. A list of all the towns in Dudleytown and the children of Dudleytown. This also includes everybody that lives in each of these residences. Finally, we've got another copy of the rough timeline, so the GM, the keeper, can just print this out and he's got it. He or she, sorry. I went into some detail on some firearms of the time period because these are not the typical Call of Cthulhu weaponry that you're going to find. And finally, we've got some information on the little people of Dudleytown, which are essentially fairies, horrible fairies. Only a few non-player characters are dealt with, including Elijah Fitzsimmons, the man in the stove house, his dog Hamilton, William Smith, who the priest is there to get or to talk to, Anne Brophy, who is the cousin, her children, Henry Cook. There are some villains as well, obviously. Calvin Brophy, who could become involved. And then we've got typical townsfolk, typical little person, typical cat, as there are a lot of cats in the village as well. This is an actual map of Cornwall town from the era, and this is a drawing of the Dudleytown and area itself. Lewis Bridge is another town conglomeration of people, whatever you want to call it. And there are 2 copies here. One unmarked, except for like large things, and the other one has your GM key. Whoops. Only 2 handouts for this one. However, the leather-bound book is completely detailed. It is an original Cthulhu mythos. I think, oh no, it's a handout. That is another handout. I thought I actually wrote that up as a mythos tome, but it's not. So we've got 4 handouts potentially, because this is how the little people respond. And then there's pictures of all the NPCs. There's quite a few of them, actually. Pictures of our investigators, and of course 6 pre-generated investigators. I used the Down Darker Trails character sheet to make these because it's the closest to that era. McGillicuddy, Mary Wright, Samuel Wright, and then here's the inside of the back page. It talks about the back cover a little bit, about the author, and finally our back cover for the Curse of Dudleytown. So there you have it. There's the Curse of Dudleytown. As I said, this is the longest one that I've written to date, and there's a lot here. There's a ton of information. If you want to run a game set in 1811 at the beginning of the new nation of the United States, this might be the thing for you, so check it out. It is, I will put a link in the description below, and that's about it. So thanks for watching, everybody. As always, I appreciate it, and I will talk to y'all next time.